Misunderstandings about wild animals are common. It frequently happens that the creatures we are most afraid of are also the ones who will only injure you if you intentionally want to damage them. Others have adorable fuzzballs on their faces, but they may also be hazardous. The moral of today's story is that respect for one another can save a life and that you should never judge a book by its cover. Vasti had moved in with his grandfather as a small child after losing his parents. His granddad lived in the wilderness and was a hunter. I had a really fantastic upbringing filled with many incredible adventures. Vasti had lots of space to play and explore outside their small home in the woods. There was never a need for him to leave his grandfather to continue his studies because the town was close by and had a small school. The two were incredibly close as children. Their sole disagreement was on the grandfather's employment choice. The grandpa wanted to impart all of his knowledge to Vasti since he enjoyed hunting. The only issue was that Vasti showed no desire to hunt with this newfound information. He would much prefer take care of the nearby animals and defend the land where he was dwelling. Though he didn't comprehend this mode of thinking, his grandfather loved Vasti enough to let him be himself. He showed him how to locate and follow an animal's path. He offered him all the information about the area they both cherished, including which plants were safe to eat and which ones weren't. When Vasti chose to pursue his dream of becoming a forest ranger, a role the village had been desperately seeking to fill for a very long time, his grandfather gave him his permission. There was no one to maintain the national park, so Vasti thought he was the right person to do it. He would have to temporarily leave his planet in order to get more knowledge about it. He went for one more walk in his favorite woods the day before he was to go. His granddad was on his mind. Vasti had to tend to his grandfather's arm injury that same morning, which required cleaning. He would be fine by himself, but while he was strolling through the forest, he heard an animal wailing and a thump. A wolf had just gotten entangled in a bear trap when he heard the ruckus and went to investigate. Would the wolf let him aid the animal the way he wanted to? Vasti approached the beast, his gaze fixed on its eyes. Despite his obvious discomfort and astonishment, the poor animal appeared to realize that Vasti was not out to hurt him. The man approached within touching distance gradually. He was aware that everything his grandfather had ever taught him was at odds with this. In the unlikely event that the wolf decided to attack, he would be unable to defend himself, and he would not leave the wounded animal in a trap. Vasti touched the release while maintaining eye contact, and the trap opened. The man continued to stare into the eyes of the wolf, but for some reason, he was not afraid. He felt at ease even in the presence of such a terrifying creature. They appeared to have forged a relationship of respect for one another. For an extended while, he did nothing more than sit there while tending to the creature. Abruptly, Vasti realized he still carried the ointment he had used to treat his grandfather in his pocket. It would help prevent infection and disinfect the wound. Would the wolf, however, let him treat to his wounds? Vasti edged nearer once again, gently. The wolf was shocked when he removed the ointment and opened the lid. Vasti talked softly to him, telling him that he was simply trying to be of assistance. Then he took up the wounded leg of the wolf. This is the point where everything may go awry. Breathing hard, he began applying ointment to the wound. Remarkably, the wolf waited for him to finish tending to them. The wolf then made his way to the edge of the forest. He pivoted, and once more, the human and the beast locked gazes. The wolf broke contact and fled into the forest, limping. Vasti had to go for his schooling, but he hoped the wolf would recover. Every time Vasti returned to the area, he saw hints of the wolf. Vasti was glad to see that the wolf had fully recovered, since there appeared to be a unique relationship between man and beast. To ensure his grandfather was taken care of, Vasti visited his house frequently. His time at school flew by as he studied, checked in on his grandfather, and had some fun. Vasti was finally able to complete his education and return home. He was prepared to assume his new position as park ranger. But once more, his friend the wolf appeared to greet him as soon as he stepped foot on the territory. Vasti tried to leave the wolf little goodies throughout the time he saw him frequently. Although the wolf was capable of taking care of itself, Vasti had a unique link with it that might one day save a life. As Vasti's grandpa became older, he gave up many of the long-standing customs that he was very proud of for his grandson. Others, though, Vasti would simply have to get used to. They were both relieved to be back together, and soon got used to living as two people rather than as a dad and his child. Vasti was keen to absorb as much information as possible since he knew his grandfather still had a lot to teach him. He enjoyed meeting the residents of the surrounding town with whom he had grown up. While the majority of his friends had to go great distances to pursue their careers, he was able to return home. This was a luxury he always needed to treasure. He was welcomed with equal enthusiasm by the townspeople, and soon it seemed as though he had never left. Being employed as a park ranger fulfilled all of his expectations. To make sure that every animal in the park was taken care of, he collaborated closely with the neighborhood veterinarian. He was now being paid to look for hurt animals and bring them to safety. He used to just do it because he enjoyed it. If you were an animal lover, this was the ideal profession. One day, Vasti's friend from school sent him a parcel in the mail. To pursue his passion, this guy had to relocate far away. He had dispatched Vasti to sample some local goodies, and they had frequent conversations. Vasti found particular attraction in several of the pastries, despite the abundance of appetizing-looking items. He invited his grandfather to tea, and the two of them shared a cup. However, Vasti started feeling strange as soon as he started eating for an unknown cause. He was seeing spots and his head was spinning. Vasti's ears were ringing as his grandfather was raving about how great the sweets were. It's likely that the pastry included an ingredient to which he was allergic. He forced himself to say that he needed assistance. They managed to get him into the vehicle and head into town with the assistance of his grandfather, who nearly pulled him. Vasti thought he was about to pass out and felt as though he could not breathe. His granddad was in the physician's office, screamed for help and leaped out, but someone else appeared and said the doctor was attending to a delivery that was taking place hours away. He would not return on schedule. It appeared as though it was too late when they glanced at Vasti since he was blue, and not breathing, there was no pulse to be found. The old guy, distraught, revealed that on the day of their death, they had a custom of burying the deceased before dusk. It was almost sunset. In an attempt to assist, the town's residents banded together and promptly set up a funeral. Even the neighborhood veterinarian came out to see it. As they were taking Vasti to the cemetery outside of town, the wolf materialized beside them out of nowhere. He snarled at the men who were carrying the casket. Vasti slipped out as they leaped. Then Vasti's head shifted back as the wolf seized his throat. When the veterinarian saw this, he shot the wolf, but then an incredible event occurred. Vasti woke up just as the vet shot him. When the doctor returned to town, he hurried to investigate the ruckus and discovered that Vasti seemed dead due to swelling in his tongue and airways. The wolf had snagged Vasti's throat, tilting his head and opening them, letting him breathe. When Vasti saw the wolf laying still, she began to cry. The veterinarian gently clarified that the wolf was only sedated. The wolf and Vasti would soon be back on their feet. Each other had been saved.